What's up, Beefy Boys fans? What's up, UFC fans? What's up, MMA fans? We got a very, very special episode for you this week on a couple different fronts. It is episode 50 for us. 50 deep.
Yes,
That's what
sir.
Harrison's still alluding to. 50 deep. That's going to be the hashtag for this episode. Hashtag 50 deep. And it's 50 episodes, man. It's been a journey. It's been an honor. It's been a ton of fun. And I've learned so much and through the process. And yeah, just any kind of, moments of reflection on 50 episodes.
Man, it's honestly crazy to look back and just think about, like, I haven't missed a fight. You know what I mean? I was talking about that
Yeah.
with a guy I worked with last night who just started up there like a month ago. And I was like, yeah, man, I watch every UFC fight. And he was like, for real? And I was like, yeah, for like 50 weeks. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, it's my thing.
Yeah, prelims and everything, man, for real, bro. Like, and it's crazy, like how much I've learned over that time. And
Honestly. And the evolution of the fight game as we've seen it too.
we literally in that short of time, it's moving so fast. 100%, that's true. And yeah, hopefully we've made tweaks and adjustments that you guys have liked along the way. I like to think that we're a lot better now than episode one, and we're gonna
For sure.
yeah, for sure. And we're gonna just keep working on improving each and every time out. Much like these fighters do. And then also, just so happens episode 50 lands directly, and I mean to the day on the 1 year anniversary.
Yep. Crazy.
One
Crazy to
year
think that.
yeah.
Well, how many Wednesday cards were there too? So we only had, what, 3 Saturdays off in a 52-week window?
Something like that, man. You got anything rough, any hard stuff
Oh,
this week?
yeah, I do. I forgot to grab it. Let me go grab it.
No worries, no worries. But yeah, so it's episode 50, 1 year anniversary. And then what a card to get the honor to talk about. It would have been a little anticlimactic if we were talking about a fight night card or just even a lackluster pay-per-view card. But we got an absolute legendary heater of a card to discuss. And yeah, I think we're even going to switch up the format a little bit this week. And yeah, we're going to do some toast. Got the whiskey out. I don't think I've had whiskey on the podcast since Khabib's retirement. We all know how that went down. So look out, world. But yeah, great fights last night. Special episode to us. And thanks for everybody that's been a part of this journey along the way. If you have not subscribed on YouTube, please go do it. Even if you're not really a video podcast person, you have no idea how much each and every one of those subs helps us. Sub at Beefy Boys Breakdown on YouTube. That really helps us out. And yeah, man, we're gonna get a little toast, a little shot to kick things off. I went to the store to get Buffalo Trace, and they were all out, which I don't blame for people wanting to drink the best bourbon there is out there. But had to settle for the Bullet. But Bullet's usually my secondary. I
Got a little Wild Turkey Rare Breed right there.
Ooh, nice. Definitely would rather be drinking that.
It's 117 proof.
Jesus. Well, take it easy, my friend. We got a long podcast ahead of us.
Oh, yeah.
Episode 50, 1 year.
My ring light. Ring light. I didn't attach my phone from it, so I didn't have to worry about it this week. So it's terrible.
No worries, man. All right, cool. So yeah, here's the 50 episodes. Here's the 1 year, and here's the
Cheers, brother.
more to come, brother. Thanks, man.
Stupid ring light.
Oh man. Yeah, you still look good. I can still see you.
Lighting still good? All right.
Yeah. You'll be all right. But if you want to grab it, by all means, grab it. But yeah, and then so we are going to switch the format up a little bit this week on YouTube. And I was thinking for Instagram, I think we should still switch it up a little bit. I think we should go early prelims, main card.
Yeah, I'm
on
with
Instagram. And then I think even what we were talking about, I think for the early prelims and the prelims, I might just do those as separate YouTube videos, and then individuals
and then
for the
individuals
big
for
three.
the main card.
Yeah, for them. Yeah, for sure, brother. But yeah, so we're switching things up. Like I said, we're always working to improve the show, find little tweaks and adjustments and things we can do to make it more viewer friendly. And I think you're really gonna like it. Even more reason to go subscribe on YouTube to Beefy Boys Breakdown, because we're switching it up on YouTube this week and I think from here on out. So for the better, of course.
And let us know what you think. I think most people are going to enjoy it that way. I think it's going to be a lot easier to get them straight to what they want to get to. Yeah, if there's like a specific fight or something that you were looking for in specific, just a lot easier to get those clips. I think for me and you's discussion too, it was one of those things that's like, there's always highlights of an event. I mean, the whole event's great, but the highlights are typically what the casual people want. And I think we have the hardcore base, so let's go for the casuals.
Yeah, it's exactly. And the people that, trust me, if you can gangster through a 3-hour podcast, it ain't going to be nothing to just keep watching in smaller chunks. And for the people that find a 3-hour podcast hard to kind of palate, I think this will be a little bit better for you guys. And, we've been doing the clips the whole time, but we've been kind of doing retroactive, and it's honestly just double the work and hard to stay caught up. So I think we're going to do it just initially, some smaller chunks for you guys on YouTube and on Instagram, and hope you guys like it. But I guess without further ado, my friend, let's hop into these early prelims, because I got to say, it's not often we get 5-fight early prelims. And when it is 5 fights, it actually makes it worth it. Whenever it's 1 or 2 fights, it just seems like it's not even worth it.
I can't stand when it's 1 or 2, because it's almost like, why didn't you guys just book 1 extra hour on your time slot and just make it all prelims? Just call it all preliminary fight, because they are all preliminary fights. You know what I mean? Just some are earlier than the others. It's always been a funky distinction. We've gone on and on about it for a year. They're never changing it. They're also probably not going to change the. Although, have you seen them numbering the UFC Vegas number whatever? I haven't seen that in a minute.
Yeah, I want to say this one, or the next one with Korean Zombie and Dan Ige, is UFC Vegas 29. I got it pulled up here on Tapology.
Oh, man. They haven't gone to just giving it the names yet.
Yeah, and then it's like different websites. So like MMA Junkie still has like the original ESPN. They'll say UFC on ESPN 1, whatever. So yeah, it can get a little confusing. I like to just remember them by the headliners. I think that's probably the most tried and true method. But man, how many episodes is this where Carlos Felipe is the first fight we discussed?
It has to be number 3 or 4, and I think he only has 3 or 4 fights at UFC. He's super entertaining.
Like, he not look in phenomenal shape last night?
And what's funny is, coming into the fight, he said, my cardio will be the difference. And shout out to him, because Jake Collier. When we first
started this podcast, that fool had titties. He looked like, by heavyweight standard, he looked in phenomenal shape last night. He looked great.
He used to look more like Jake Collier. And
he did.
Dude, and this is so crazy, because I think we noted this the first time both these guys fought, was that Felipe looked super out of shape, and we were just like shocked that he can even be in the UFC the way he was.
Yeah,
but he's obviously changed that around. But then on the flip side of it, we talked about how Collier has come up from 185 to 264.5.
Yeah, and he's not a healthy come up. Like, he's literally obese. Like
like he put on weight in the worst ways.
Yeah, man. But I gotta say, this fight was a banger, which I mean, I think we all pretty much knew it would be. This wasn't going to be a point fighting type of situation here, but man, I thought round 1 Collier looks great, which he typically does in round 1. As we alluded to, he's not in the greatest shape, so he usually tries to come out hot and fast, and usually if fighters are able to kind of get him into deeper water, he can fall into some trouble, as you know, out of shape happens with out of shape fighters, and he pretty much sums up this fight.
I will say he had some crispy hands at the very start. It was one of those things where he was getting the better of the exchanges in the first round, I thought. Even though Felipe was super down to trade, and that maintained to be the case the whole fight, as it always does for Felipe. They call him the Brazilian Diaz brother.
Yeah, and he's super entertaining. He's super demonstrative. Like he's kind of showboating a little bit. And I think, I don't know, I like it. I do somewhat wish sometimes he would just go ahead and just get the win. But it is fun. It is entertaining. Did you give round 1 to Collier? I thought he was a little more active, inflicted a little more damage, but.
Yeah. So activity-wise, I thought that was Collier's best round. Damage-wise, I thought it was his best round. Pretty much everything for Collier, his best round was, I thought, the first.
Yeah,
striking, defense, all of it.
But then it was crazy because after kind of weathering that storm, in between rounds, Felipe was hyping up the crowd and getting real crunk in between rounds, and it's sometimes you can't read too much into that stuff, but sometimes at the same time, body language can be very telling of how fighters are feeling and thinking. And, even after losing round 1, I think on most people's scorecards, Felipe was looking great, feeling great. And I think it was a good sign of things to come. And yeah, man, in round 2, Felipe came out way better. He was in better shape. He was the fresher fighter. And I hate that. It sounds kind of like lazy analysis, but I feel like you'll agree with it. He was just passing the eye test in round 2, right? He was coming for it. His punches had more zip on them.
Oddly enough, I think that's what it was more than anything, because when you looked at it stats-wise, the round was razor thin, and I could even see someone maybe leaning it to Collier if they weren't paying close attention.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. The numbers can be deceiving in MMA and in combat sports. I think the strike numbers were really close to even, or Collier might have even had the advantage on paper.
I think Collier won on paper at the end of the fight.
But just looking like watching that round too, like if it was a street fight and you say, hey, who won that round? You'd be like, the darker skinned guy.
You know what?
Yeah.
This is crazy because we're going to get to this here again pretty soon. But I think quality of strikes has to be judged so much more than quantity in some specific instances. We'll get to it, but like Keonzad Davis, the numbers are crazy for that fight versus how I actually was watching it occur.
That's going to be a fun one to discuss. And I think that may end up, as much as I like PFL and I like what they're doing and I like how they have the strike numbers on the screen, but that may eventually kind of be their undoing, right? If it's like, it's going to lead to a point fighting. It's going to lead to a point fighting style if they reward point fighting. Do you see what I'm saying here? As opposed, now they do kind of counteract that by giving you more points for the first round finish in the standings. So maybe they did figure that out with checks and balances. But we're talking about UFC here. But it is interesting to note how different promotions are kind of, approaching this dynamic of scoring and
which points. Also I think we should note real fast for PFL. Claressa Shields made her debut.
Yes, because we already started.
We'll finish this fight, and then we'll dive into that as part of this.
Yes, great. I'm so glad you brought that up. But yeah, round two. So going into three, we pretty much had a one round apiece, and I think even that being said, that still kind of had the momentum leaning on Felipe because
Felipe, going into the third, I was like, this is bad for Collier if he can't find some sort of combination down the middle, a leg kick, or some sort of extra energy. Like, I was like, this is not going to be good, because you could just tell by the way the second half of the second round went. It was just Collier gassing and Felipe starting to step on the gas.
Now, so how did you score round three? Because I thought round three was essentially a coin flip, man. Even though it kind of like we set it up making it sound like Felipe was going to look great, and in a lot of ways he did. It was kind of similar to the second round where I think Collier actually had more strikes technically on paper and more volume, but it just looked like shit. He was moving backwards. He was exhausted. The punches didn't have that much pop on him.
No zip on him. Yeah, he had lost all the spring on his punch. So it was like, okay, you hit him, but...
Yeah, and Felipe was full of aggression and coming forward and really trying to hurt Collier and still landing and connecting, I'd say probably cleaner and more impactful. Now, I probably am going to talk out of both sides of my neck here. I'll hop on. I gave round three to Collier, but in the same sentence, I literally said it was a coin flip.
Yes, I'm totally with that. I do that plenty of times where like a round is legit razor thin. So I only gave it to Felipe probably based on eye test of his actual, like the way he presented himself. Like the fact that he wore the damage so well, looked like he was the fresher man. A lot of it was honestly like some sort of like sociology, you know what I mean? Psychology. It was more making me think that he won.
No, I agree. And this is a weird fight. And like you said, it does come up later in this card. But so I said, Felipe did a lot of things that looked great. He probably landed the harder shots, had the more impactful moments. But when it was all said and done, the significant strike numbers were 117 to 88 in favor of Collier.
I mean, 30 difference.
Margin.
Yes, that's 10 strikes around.
In a heavyweight fight, so really hard to score, and it shows that the judges agreed with us pretty much that it was hard to score because it was a split decision. Two judges had it 29-28 Felipe. One judge agreed with me 29-28 Collier, and I even feel weird saying agree with me because it was literally a coin flip. Like I felt like Two-Face, I had to bust out the old quarter, but
let me ask you a quick question because I'm going to bring it up in the next fight too, not Claressa Shields, but the next UFC fight we'll get to after that.
Okay.
If you were scoring this on the one model, who do you think wins this fight under ONE FC rules?
Man, and it's super hard. See, I leaned Collier. I'd probably still.
I think so too. I think so. I think I lean more to Collier for ONE FC style.
It was a hard fight to score. Because and I know people are probably tired of my skateboarding comparisons, but seriously, like if two people do a kickflip and they both land their kickflip, but like the pros kickflip is going to look infinitely better than the jabroni at the skate park's kickflip. But they're both still landed a kickflip. Like in a game of skate, nobody would get a letter, but one was still better than the other. But
great way to look at it in a vert competition.
It's weird, man. It's weird.
Get more for your flair. Yeah.
It's like even other sports. If somebody shoots a three with ugly ass form, but it goes in, it still counts as 3 points.
Oh, it's like Vlad Guerrero hitting home runs. Like he used to dig them out of the literal dirt to hit them, and it's like who else could do that? But then it's like They don't look pretty, but they're still runs.
Yeah, and so it's there is a subjective nature to it that people either love or hate. Organizations like PFL are trying to kind of get more data centered and kind of take the subjective nature somewhat out of it, even though they still have judges, but they're kind of leaning more in the analytics direction.
Which I mean, man, if you look at modern day sports models of NFL, NBA,
And
soccer, all of
MLB
it.
more
I mean,
specifically. Yeah.
MLB's the biggest
Captain
analytic
analytics.
league.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
I mean, Daryl Morey came from baseball to basketball and brought it straight over with him.
Yeah. Basketball's quickly on their heels for sure. So it's just different approaches. Some, like I'm sure old school fight fans probably prefer the UFC, like a little bit of allowing for the subjective nature and allowing for that eye test and the Felipe. Like, so Felipe won the fight. I know we've kind of gotten a little convoluted and down the rabbit hole, but Felipe won the split decision, and that's why I'm not rolling out any hills. I barely gave it to Collier. It was a split. No hills to die on there. But man, let's get into this Claressa Shields. And honestly, I feel like a dickhead. Who did she even fight? I can look it up.
Yeah, you'll have to, because I don't know. I don't know hardly any women's PFL fighters for that matter. You know what I mean? Like, no disrespect to that woman. It was just more so that she was Claressa Shields' debut. It wasn't.
And I'm sure she was. Oh, it was Brittany Elkin, which is she Darren Elkin's wife? Elkin or sister or something.
I do believe. I think they are. They're either husband and wife or they're brother and sister. But I'm almost positive she's
has to be.
somehow.
Yeah. And I don't know how many MMA Elkins can there be out there, but yeah. So Claressa Shields, I mean, the essentially greatest women's boxer of all time. We'd be remiss not to talk about it. Making her MMA debut in this new Jake Paul world where all the MMA fighters are going to boxing, and even before that, Conor McGregor and Floyd. Like, we've yet to see a successful boxing to MMA transition. I mean, of course, there's guys that had amateur kickboxing and boxing fights, but as far as like big name boxers coming to MMA, we just haven't really seen it. Or
Never seen it.
The
funny enough, dude, the probably the best boxer to come over is Artem Lobov.
Okay.
As funny as that sounds, but dude had it's like a 19-1 boxing record pro before he came over to MMA, and that's why everyone's always talking about like Artem the GOAT, blah blah blah. Because like they say he could have been a really great boxer, but chose to do MMA instead.
Yeah, and I mean it's a I just gotta say, you gotta respect it, and maybe we're biased, but I think, and even just looking at it like data wise, I think MMA is just objectively, I think it's fair to say it's just a harder sport. Like,
absolutely, more weapons to defend.
There's more weapons, yes. Like, I mean, because not even just the eight weapons, but then jiu-jitsu, wrestling, I mean, throws, I mean, judo, I mean, everything you got to worry about.
I hate to say it, but if you look at other sports, you think about basketball, they put in a three-point line to have extra weapons added to the game. They put in the paint to take weapons away from big men. Like, it happens in all sports where they modify the rule sets and equipment to try and get what you can get with fighting. But in fighting, it's so different because we call a boxing match a fight. We call a Muay Thai match a fight. Some people call a jiu-jitsu match a fight. But realistically, mixed martial arts is the only fight. All the rest are competitions within their defined rule sets.
Yeah, for sure, man. That's a very interesting way of looking at it, for sure. So Claressa Shields, she was fighting, and it was crazy because they didn't really know favors with the matchup. You think if they were trying to build her up or toss her a tuna can, they would give her a striker that she could box up. But no, they gave her a grappler straight out of the gates, which I kind of respect on PFL's part. It would have been a little. They
almost did themselves a big disservice.
They almost did, but I think in the end it paid off, because if they would have gave her a tuna can striker, it would have been a little Triller-ish, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been that like legitimate of a competition.
If someone tries to stand and strike with her, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. You could see that just clearly in the fight against Elkins.
So Shields lost rounds 1 and round 2, and some would even say one of those rounds was a 10-8.
I had a 10-8 for sure.
She was getting dominated on the ground, which is the worst nightmare for a boxer that comes to MMA. Everybody, like, I'll be real, like, I found myself kind of being like, yeah, well, this is kind of what happens, right? When you come from boxing to MMA, like, you're going to get wrestled, you're going to get a forehead under your chin, and you're going to just not know what to do.
They keep their hands locked around your body the whole time.
Yeah, chest to chest, and give you no room to fire off any shots. No, when they were on their feet, I mean, it looked like Claressa Shields in there, right? I mean, there was some next level, like the heat on those punches, and I'll include Amanda
even on the ground.
I'll include UFC fight. Now she was fighting at 155, which it doesn't exist in the UFC, but which is a smart move on PFL to even offer that weight class. That's really great business model. But anyway, there was some heat on those punches that I haven't seen in like a women's mixed martial arts contest, and like I will say that with confidence.
I felt like the snap on him was crazy too, man.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
there wasn't wind up, but they were poppy.
Yeah, they were poppy. Yes, they were some heat on them.
What do you expect from a gold medalist boxer? I think that is to be. I think if we didn't see that, then we should be alarmed for Claressa Shields and think maybe you don't have exactly what you need to have.
And then Claressa Shields, whatever, because in the third round, this is where it gets absolutely nuts. Did she?
Nutty.
I forget. You'll have to remind me. Did she drop her with punches and then jump on her, or did she reverse the position?
She stuffed the takedown for 90 seconds, just kept her hips back, and just kept putting shots on her side of her head until eventually the girl started to let go and went to a single leg instead of trying to go on the double, and that allowed Claressa Shields to go hip down and open up and just start throwing those hammers over the top. And that's when she hurt her. Like, you could tell one of those punches from the ground, like, hurt Elkins. Yeah. Where she, like, stopped going for the takedown and was like, oh, this isn't good.
Yeah, no, and then Claressa Shields started landing heavy ground and pound, so heavy, and you can tell Elkins was in trouble, and she got the finish. She got the third round finish after being down 3 points going into the third round, and which is just, it's really crazy.
Unheard of.
Yeah, like, it's really crazy.
Like live odds, you probably put that at like plus 800 for Claressa Shields to pull that off.
Yeah, no, it was impressive. And the fact that she got the finish in ground and pound as a boxer, I mean, it was a good look, man. It was a good look. Like
we talked about after on the phone, it was a lot of stock up for Claressa Shields with me.
And it's one of those things where, like, if she knocks her out standing, everybody's kind of like, well, yeah, business as usual, like that's
right.
Regularly scheduled programming. That's what was supposed to happen. But the fact that she ended the fight on top in ground and pound, like I said, it just – as far as just the overall optics of her transition to MMA, I think it's a real good look. And yeah, she's obviously really exciting. And of course, everybody's head immediately jumps to what would she look like against Amanda. At least that's where my head immediately jumps to. Now, that's obviously getting ahead of ourselves. I could maybe the only scenario I see it is like down the road whenever Amanda's like getting a little long in the tooth. Claressa
could be the girl that takes her out,
Yeah. And then that would be, by definition, a mega fight. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
That'd be maybe the first women's mega fight. Like,
you could argue Cyborg Nunez.
I was gonna say that, but I think this is a whole nother level. Like, Claressa Shields is way more like Q rating.
Or if Kayla Harrison ever comes over, if you ever get like a cross promotional women's championship match, it's gonna be the biggest fight.
Definitely, man. But yeah, like I said, we'd be remiss not to talk about the Claressa Shields fight. It was really exciting. I think it was the most like talked about I've heard anything about PFL. Like their brand was getting talked about on Twitter and on social media and in the MMA community more so than even Pettis' first fight against Clay Collin.
I feel like her Q rating kind of slipped. Like it kind of maybe overtook PFL, and she started like giving Q rating to PFL, which. It's pretty irregular for a singular fighter. And
really just proves however much money they paid her, it was worth it, right? They got more than that back in like advertisement and just overall buzz.
Bose was running a sponsorship deal with her, a commercial on the PFL. Like they were running a Bose commercial with her, like as the person. I was like, damn it, you haven't even fought in the league, and you're getting a Bose commercial about your MMA career.
That's dope. Yeah, I mean, some would say it's not dope, but I mean, hey, she earned it, right? It's not like she is some celebrity or YouTuber, right? She cut her teeth boxing, fighting from a young age.
And I will say, in Bose's defense, they launched like a new line of like earbuds, like in-ear earbuds that are like you saw Davis and Figueiredo come out in them last night. They're like the stripe across the ear. They look like a stripe almost, but and they wrap around the back. The reason that's great for fighters is cauliflower ear.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, a lot of fighters can't wear Beats or AirPods because their ears are so fucked up. I've heard multiple fighters talk about that.
I think those Bose ones are like supposed to be super like malleable and flexible to the point where fighters can even get them in.
Nice, nice, man. But yeah, and Wiz Khalifa is a partial owner of the PFL, so that makes me.
That's
I'm not gonna
right.
lie, I'm big. Since I was a young and a big Wiz Khalifa fan, and he trains all the time himself. So I'm definitely, I like to root for PFL to do well, and it feels good to see people, talking about it and caring about it, But back to this UFC early prelim. Next, we got a very interesting prospect on our hands, and Fares Ziam out of
Yep.
France.
Yep.
He's
Yep.
only 24 years old, and he was the minus 115 favorite and pretty much a coin flip money line fighting Luigi Vendramini. He's only 25 years old, minus 105. Like I said, pretty much a coin flip. Fighting at lightweight. And, man, this was an interesting fight, man. This Siam guy, his striking and his, fluidity is just, it jumps off the screen. But he's also, some holes in his game jumped off the screen as well.
So Ziam is super long for 155. I think he had 76. 6'2"? Yeah, 6'2", 76-inch reach or 77-inch. It was pretty long. Now for Vendramini, he's 5'8", but still has a 73-inch reach. So good for him. He has long arms in this situation, especially because he was getting kind of tagged up in the start, but he also understood. You could tell he understood that it was he knew he had to get to that mid range, almost mid to close, because he couldn't stay at distance. And his coaches were doing actually a fantastic job in the corner every time.
Yeah, man. And then in round one, Ziam, his striking, his jab, his ability to use that length to keep the distance, because we talk about it all the time. Just because a fighter's longer, it doesn't automatically mean he's going to be able to use that to his advantage or keep the distance. But in round one, he was able to. And it was interesting. He was landing effective jabs, which obviously helped maintain the distance. But a lot of the distance control was done using the feint. That right leg, he kept feinting it all night, and it was a super effective feint.
It's a good pickup. It's a really good pickup. So you scored the first 10-9 to Ziam, I assume, right?
Yes, I did.
And then in the second, Vendramini's coach, just as I noted, was literally telling him, hey, you can't be at distance with him. You lost that round because you're at distance. You have to get in. You have to be in close. Grapple him on the cage. Strike when you're in close. His coach told him exactly what he needed to do. And also I like the way his coach talked to him, which was, it was that weird thing of pour water. He would tell him everything he was doing. So that was the coach who was pour water on your head. And he was water in your hand. You grab the water and then you go, all right. And then start talking to him. I think that's just try and snap his conscious self back over in case he was just deep as shit in the fight.
Yeah, that's an interesting tactic for sure. Yeah, it is hard to kind of center yourself in those moments in that brief time you get in between rounds. And then how do you think Ziam came out looking in round two?
So, I still thought that Ziam did a great job in round two. He was still stuffing the takedowns. His footwork was really nice, keeping Vendramini just kind of off that edge where he just couldn't really get into his range. But Ziam kind of had him on the very end of his jab. But Vendramini started to kind of figure it out, I thought, near the end of the second. You could tell that he was starting to figure out the blitz-in attack was a successful move and that was going to be his way to win, essentially. I still scored it for Ziam.
Me too.
Vendramini, you could tell it clicked at the end of the second where he was this is the only way I can do this.
Yeah, seriously, and that's going to become very relevant in the third. And then the crowd was really the story of round two, because this would kind of be a storyline throughout the fight. They were very quick to boo this Phoenix, Arizona crowd.
This was the craziest crowd I've ever seen in a fight.
And they were not a fan of Ziam's ultra cautious style. Like I said, Ziam, and kind of in their defense, Ziam was landing some decent jabs, or it's really some good jabs, but Ziam's really, like I said, when we were breaking down the first round, Ziam's most effective, essentially, weapon or non-weapon was the feint. And the crowd had it with that goddamn feint. And then, because they're, like I said, so we both had Ziam winning rounds 1 and 2, but he didn't really inflict much damage over those rounds. And the crowd was getting restless. They were not there to see a sparring match or some hitting the mitts.
For me, though, I will say, and I'm sure you felt the same way, I was kind of well, this is what he has to do. This is the path to victory for Firas Ziam, and if he's able to do this, then good on him. It wasn't for me, I was watching getting frustrated.
Yeah, I wasn't hitting my snooze button, and I do think the crowd at points was out of line throughout the night.
Oh my God, yes! Last night they were
Yeah,
ridiculous on a couple different cases, bro. I was like, damn, you guys need
like
to
this isn't a
chill
Muay
out.
Thai card. Like there's gonna be some clinches, there's gonna be some grappling. Like let's.
Dude, they booed Vettori every time he shot for a takedown, and it was like, do you guys understand he can't strike with him?
Yeah, and we'll definitely get to that. But yeah, the crowd was testy, but not necessarily like kind of an annoying way. Kind of an annoying testy, I'll say.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we both had it 2018 going into round 3. But you said at the end of round 2, Vendramini was starting to figure some things out, and it definitely carried over to round 3. Round 3 was Vendramini's best round. He started landing some bombs. He got on top position. And then he advanced position in the grappling. And he was landing some pretty solid ground and pound. I think pretty much everybody gave round 3 to Vendramini, but he definitely built off some of those keys he started to figure out at the end of round 2.
Dude, he came out like a hurricane in round 3. Literally, like, he dominated the first 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Like, that's when – so he took him down 12 seconds after he rocked him. And then Ziam got up with 90 seconds to go and still kept getting rocked. I was super close to a 10-8. I mean, about as close as I possibly could be.
Well, that becomes relevant, doesn't it? In
Absolutely, it does.
Yeah.
Because if he can 10-8 him in the third, it's a draw.
Yes, which one, and we'll kind of cut to the chase. One judge scored it a 28-28 draw, and then the other 2 judges scored it how I scored it, 29-28 Ziam. And so we got a majority decision. Kind of when it's all said and done, doesn't really matter. But a majority decision is interesting because they said one judge scored that third round at 10-8.
Well, he was one judge away from getting a majority draw.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Which I get it. This is a prime example where Ziam was there to win like a point fight. He wasn't there to get a finish.
And Vendramini was trying to win a fight.
A fight. Yeah, like hurt you fight. Yeah, that was the difference.
So this is why I asked you earlier in the last fight, by 1 FC, how'd you score it? How would you score this one by 1 FC?
Man, it would be harder, but I honestly think that I would have scored it still for Ziam. Because you can't just throw the first 2 rounds out the window. And I really don't think there's an argument to be made for, even though you're not scoring it round by round. I get it. That's the one model.
Right.
But they still
he wasn't that
rounds.
far. Because he wasn't that far ahead though in the first 2 rounds.
I feel it.
And then he got mollywopped for 5 minutes.
He did. I feel it makes it much more interesting if you're using one scoring. Maybe I'm being stubborn. Because this was a tale of kind of I would say it was the tale of 2 halves, but it was really the tale of 2/3 and 1/3, and it's really hard for me to ignore.
And in UFC I totally can get it, but in like 1 FC the way I look at it is like
it's more of like street fight.
It's the end of the fight too. Yeah. And like you're just out there dragging a guy for the last 5 minutes.
I get it. I really do get it. But it's also like, where was that earlier in the fight? I mean, it's a 3-round fight. Like, if we're just scoring the third round, I mean, that's a whole different sport. Like,
I scored it 10-9 in the third when it all came down to it, so I did score it for Ziam as a victory.
But conversation point. I'm not mad you brought it up. It's interesting to think about, like a thought exercise. Yeah, for sure, 100%. Yeah, I get you. But we did both score it the same at the end of the day, though.
Because I wonder how Vendramini feels after that fight.
Vendramini, I imagine.
You got to feel salty, right? Because you realize that, like, you probably could have been the better man. You just didn't go for it early enough.
Yeah, and that's my point. Where, like, he could have done this in the first or second because he wasn't going to get hurt from Ziam. Like, Ziam had some really great technical striking, but he doesn't have one-shot power. Like Vendramini was a little too cautious himself in round 1 or 2. But I mean, it is hindsight's 20/20, and he was feeling him out. And like I said, with those feints on that leg, it was really hard to get reads. And if one of those high kicks would have connected up the middle that he was feinting, I mean, it would have been probably game over. So I feel him. I don't think either fighter really did anything wrong. I think it's really just a really weird matchup.
No, I think you're right. I think it's like a matchup where it's like super tough for Vendramini, but then on the flip side, it could be super tough for Ziam depending on how Vendramini fights.
Yeah, and also though, it's hard for me to get excited about Vendramini going forward because I think he is too skinny for lightweight. But do I think a 6'2" guy needs to cut the featherweight? I mean, the light skinned dude from last week's card does it. Sean, what's his name?
Super tall and skinny. Oh my
but
god.
Sean Woodson, or I don't know,
Woodson,
but
yeah.
okay.
Right,
So Sean Woodson is a similar build and drops to featherweight. I think Ziam's style would fare much better in featherweight. I think the grappling and the thickness of some of these lightweights, it's hard for me to ever really, if he couldn't deal with Vendramini's like aggressiveness and strength, there's a million lightweights stronger and more aggressive than Vendramini. Like no knock on Vendramini, but I think the kind of fighter that gives Ziam problems is the type of fighter that the lightweight division is chock full of.
Yeah, I mean, look at Dober and
Riddell.
Yeah,
like how those guys are built.
Those guys are the back end of 55, and they're thick boys.
But there's a lot of things I like about Ziam. I think in a perfect world, Ziam could be like the small guy style bender, but it's not a perfect world. And like, he's definitely has holes in his game, and he's definitely very just like frail, which comes with like, it's a give and take when you're a tall fighter, but I think he may be given more than he's taken. He's like very, very weak.
It's almost like if he did like weight conditioning and training for like 18 months and just came up to 170, he might be better off. Like putting on like 20 pounds of muscle and cutting an extra 5 because of the extra water weight that you gain from the extra muscle.
It's interesting, right? Because the technique's there. The technique is
right. That's what I mean. And the length if he wants to go up to 72.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, if we're saying he's too weak for lightweights, but we want him to fight welterweights, it's a weird thing in MMA, man. It's a weird thing.
But I feel like adding muscle to a big frame is a lot easier to ask than to cut the extra 10 and just be extra thin and long.
I feel you.
Both work, but I don't love the thin and long style.
Yeah, and that comes into we'll talk. Yeah, I feel like it's interesting though because there's so much to like about Ziam, and then there's so many obvious holes in the game of Ziam, and it's one of those things, right? In the words of the great Chael P, it's one of those things. And the crowd booed the decision, by the way. So the crowd, which I said they
crowd wanted Vendramini to win.
Yeah, the crowd was testing. The crowd booed pretty much every fucking thing. Yeah, if you blinked the way they didn't like, they would boo. So. I don't know how much stock to put into it, but the crowd booed the decision in. It was just fun after a year of Apex fights, man. Just hearing, like part of me wanted to be annoyed for the crowd, and then part of me was like, "Hey, man, this is what we're back to the real world. Like, not everybody likes everything, and it's better than hearing crickets." So hey, it's give and take. But yeah, we get to this next fight talking about long and lanky and weakness and physical attributes. I think a lot of those same talking points come full circle into this next fight. We got fan favorite, one of our favorites. I mean, how could you not love him? Chase Hooper, 21 years old, minus 120 favorite, fighting Steven Peterson, plus 100. Another essential coin toss. I got to say, man, every time I heard Steven Peterson, I thought of Stinky Peterson off of Hey Arnold, the tall, skinny, like redneck kid with the flat top. So
my God.
Thank you, Peterson. But anyway, fighting that featherweight. And like I said, man, it's hard. Chase Hooper's lack of athletic ability is becoming like a talking point. And it's one of those things where I think that in an older UFC that was more jiu-jitsu heavy and less freak athlete heavy, I think he potentially has a way doper career. I think I think he has a low ceiling, man. And I think that's so, like, how do you say a 21-year-old with a dope record has a low ceiling? The lack of like fast twitch muscle, the lack of the just natural born God-given talent, I think becomes an issue. What does Kenny have to say here?
He's at the Mont. Just saw my mom. Tell her I said what's up. Tell the people at the Mont we said what's good.
The legend. Shout out to the Mont. Tell him to get Beefy Boy up on the screen.
Yeah, honestly, put us on the screen. Dude, for me, it's with Chase Hooper. I really like his personality. I like all the stuff he does. The UFC is going to run into a terrible marketing and branding problem if they keep up this him and Ben Askren show, because Ben Askren's out of the UFC.
Yeah,
Chase Hooper, if he keeps fighting like this, isn't going to be in there much longer. So then why are they going to be attached to non-UFC guys? The Funky Fam. That's their show. Anyway, for me, it's more of a thing of like, Chase Hooper's got to learn to strike, or at least be able to do damage with his strikes. Because his grappling can be as great as it is, but he's just getting pieced up. Even in the grappling situations, whenever a guy stays in safe position and just lands big elbows or big punches, just like last night.
I'll say, man, Chase Hooper's tough as nails. But see, that's why, bro, I'm not even going to have the technique discussion. I thought his striking technique looked way better.
That's way better, I'm talking but about he just doesn't do damage when he hits.
That's kind of what I'm talking about. I think it's like a genetic issue we're talking here, man. I don't think it's like an issue that can be corrected. I mean, maybe it can be corrected in a weight room, maybe. But, I mean, we played sports with plenty of guys that, like, I mean, bro, like, I'm not going to say any names because I'm not trying to be rude, but we both played football with guys. It's like, dog, you can give them all the roids and personal trainers you want. That guy just doesn't have the genetics. Like we talk about guys like LeBron James and Giannis Antetokounmpo, like winning the genetic lottery. Well, like there's genetic lottery losers that just like, and I'm not saying Chase Hooper's a genetic lottery loser. He's a professional athlete. Some would say he has better genes than me, but I'm just talking about like athletic potential.
Yeah, but do you remember what Zach Johnson was built like his freshman year versus what he was built like by the time he was 23?
Yeah, but when we're talking fighters, putting on 100 pounds isn't an option.
That's fair. That's fair.
Like apples and oranges. But I do understand your greater point. Physiques can change. And we were also talking ages 14 to 18. Even though Chase Hooper's young, let's not act like he's like an actual child.
No, he's 21. But that's what I'm saying is by the time that his like because, man, when I was 21, I still don't feel like I had, like, the same, like, overall, like, body build. I don't know.
See, it was different from me because by the time I was 21, I was 3 years into a college strength and conditioning program, and I probably was at my athletic peak at 21. I mean, I was like –
See, but I would argue back with you that, like, dudes in the NFL, you see him at 26, they're right. Insanely
like George
more
Kittle.
stacked.
I mean, our boy, shout out George Kittle. I mean, he looks like a WWE wrestler now. I feel you. And,
right.
But George Kittle has phenomenal genes. Like, have you seen his parents? I have.
That's fair.
Shout out to his wonderful parents. They have always treated me well. But I mean, I think his mom was a college volleyball player and his dad was a college football player. Apples and oranges here. We're way off the beaten path here, but I think Chase Hooper's problem is not a problem that can be fixed by a striking coach. He was training with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I don't think like that's the answer because I thought technique-wise.
Oh shit! Go ahead, you're good.
I thought technique-wise he looked honestly better, and I may even say he looked fine, like good enough technique-wise. But like you said, when he lands, there's no pop. I don't know. Let's get into round by round. I think we both kind of made our points as good as we're going to make them. Another huge point in this fight is a stinky Steven Peterson missed weight by 2.5 pounds.
Yeah, which I was not a fan of.
And Rogan and Paulie Felder, man, they were – did you hear their insinuations? They pretty much – I mean, they didn't, but they did, which – like as Chael always says, the only thing worse you can do that actually say something is say it without saying it. But they pretty much called him out on missing weight on purpose. They
really?
Oh yeah, bro. Like Anik, and less so Anik, but Paulie Felder and Rogan were like essentially calling out Peterson for missing weight on purpose. They're like, if there was ever a fight to miss weight on purpose for, it'd be the Chase Hooper matchup. Like,
well, they probably know the particulars of the situation too, as far as like first weigh-in attempt, and then like how much did he weigh in less on the second weigh-in attempt, shit like that.
Yeah, man. So they were making some bold accusations, but I mean, like I said, they probably have more inside information than we do. So it's interesting. And I don't disagree with their point that if there was a fight to come in a little heavy,
the kid that grapples,
that has that's super skinny and not athletic, like exactly. But all right, so let's get round by round here. We that's enough context for anybody. Round one, I had a 10-9 Hooper. It was super close, super close. Like, I don't know, it was razor thin. But I do think Hooper's multiple takedowns, the sub attempts, and his ability, and this is probably overstating it, but his ability to get the fight where he wanted the fight to take place, I thought couldn't really be understated. I thought that Hooper in round one, the fight, he was very happy with how round one went.
Man, Kenneth's just out here being wild. I thought that Peterson won the first round, but I agree with you that it was insanely close. The only reason I even lean to Peterson is not because everything you said I agree with. I just thought he was doing damage.
He was, and that's why I say it was close. And it's very reminiscent of the arguments we were making in the Carlos Felipe and Collier breakdown, where there's like one guy can technically be doing the right things on paper, but still kind of get beat up as far as we're just talking about fighting.
Right.
Fighting with an N, not a G. If we're talking fighting instead of fighting. I think Peterson won the fighting, but I think Hooper might have won the fighting. I don't know.
There were some wild fights last night when you really get down
so
to
hard
it.
To score.
As far as the scoring, yeah. Well, 100%. So how'd you score the second round?
So just to be clear, you had round one for Peterson. I had round one for Hooper.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. So we're already did. So round two, I think round 2 and 3 are essentially non-debatable, and that's why I'm not really dying on any hills here. I thought rounds 2 and 3, we can kind of lump them together if you want, because I thought it was almost like copy and paste, essentially. It was position once Peterson was, because I mean it was very obvious to everybody, and this is where the weight cut potentially does or doesn't come into factor. Peterson was the much physically stronger man, and he was like 10 years older. He missed weight. Even if he does make weight, he's probably still the stronger fighter. That's why I don't know how much kind of weight you want to give to that. But it was position over submission, and Chase Hooper is Mr. Submission. And I'll be real, there was a couple times where I thought Hooper was going to pull a because Hooper is known for pulling rabbits out of the hat, man.
That's what he's the best at.
The leg locks, the heel hooks, he pulls them out of his ass. And he almost did it again. There was times where he had the legs pretty tangled up and a lot of –
Dude, yeah. The heel hook was almost in. That guy barely got his knee out. Peterson barely got his knee out. And Rogan was talking about – and then I loved after the second round, Peterson goes to his corner and his coach essentially looks at him and was like, hey, stop trying to submit him and grapple with him. He's like, you're not winning that battle. He's like, this kid's like a black belt on the ground. Like, stop it.
I would honestly disagree because I thought Peterson won because of his top control and his position over submission grappling.
But what his coach was alluding to was like whenever he was trying to like get the guillotine stuff like that, he was stop doing that stuff.
No, position.
Top
pressure. Be the bigger man, and that's what won him the fight. 100%.
And he was the stronger man, clearly. Chase Hooper's technique was way, way, way better. Like there were some moves he hit where I was like, that was super slick, but it didn't matter because his physique wasn't there.
Before we keep it pushing, thoughts on the fake glove touch by Stinky Steven Peterson in round 3? Fucking weak as shit, right? Especially against
honestly, you should lose a point for that bullshit.
See, it's the ultimate unwritten rule. And baseball's unwritten rules, like I'm so tired of hearing about them. Fighting has them too. That's one, right? Because the official rule on paper is protect yourselves at all times. And I think Floyd's done this before. Like, I mean, it's low. It's low.
It's a bullshitter's move. It's a bullshitter's move.
And I also but see, it's one of those things where if Chase Hooper would have done it in a fight where he needed any advantage, I wouldn't be mad at it. And that's not because I like Chase Hooper. The reason why I think that it was whacked by Stinky Steven was because he was essentially winning the fight, and he was the more dominant. And he missed weight. Like, he didn't need to do that, in my opinion. So that's why I think if that I was out of line. I was totally not a fan of it. It kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. Like I said, it's Hooper's such a likable guy, but I think like so many of our favorite fighters, I'm learning after doing this for a year. Shout out to us. We've been doing this a year. After doing this for a year, I've learned that you can't fall in love with a fighter's personality. I mean, you can. You can follow him on Twitter and like all the tweets you want, and laugh at him, react on Facebook, all that. But it has dog shit to do with, like, future projection of talent in the ring.
That's why I like Darren Till so much, though, is because he is top 5 non-debatable skills. But he's also so funny on social media. Derek Lewis, top 5 debatable or non-debatable skills. So funny on social media. When you're at that level, you can be yourself.
Yeah, man, that's a great point. So I scored at 29-28, Peterson. One judge agreed with me. Two judges agreed with you, 30-27. Not mad at it at all. Just kind of, like I said, I'm nervous for Hooper, especially because his future projects to the 155 division. It's like should Hooper legitimately go do like football workouts for 6 months and like get some pecs and some triceps?
Dude, that's what I'm talking about. Is Chase Hooper
deadlifts.
doesn't even have delts. He doesn't have chest or pecs rather for like pectoral for the actual muscle. He doesn't have lats. Doesn't have traps. Like the dude needs to go get actual muscle groups. Like you need big muscle groups.
Or at the very least, do some like track sprinter workouts. Like get that hip explosion and quads and hands.
But even those workouts, bro, like a sprinting workout builds chest
and they lift weights. They lift weights too hard.
True, but I mean, if you're sprinting hard, when you're throwing your arms into it, you're gonna get some muscle and trapezius from it.
Yeah, man, and it's. But like I said, man, I how much of it is his genetic ceiling is my question, I guess, more than like a definitive
and you're not wrong
statement.
About that, right? There are certain people that, like you said, like no offense, like Nick Adams or Landry, but like just guys that would do the workouts with us. They would do the workouts. I'm not saying that they weren't hitting the weights. I'm not saying they were skipping reps. Well, Nick Adams, you were definitely skipping reps, but like
smoking cigarets behind the gas station.
Yeah, nicotine.
But hey, man, I'll use my own self for an example, bro. Like we're Beefy Boys Breakdown. We're thick boys. Like I would do the same, even in college. Like we would work out. Like if you ever did a college football workout, you know what I'm talking about. You can barely walk when you're done. Like
you run like 16. You run like 16 110s as your like conditioning check. It's like what?
Till max every day. Yeah, no, it's insane. I had a gut the whole time. Now, granted, I was drinking beers and
how many calories
mac and
do you
cheese
put on
and
a
shit, like a lot. But I'm just saying,
3,500.
But eating all this, I had other teammates that were eating the same things, drinking the same beers, and they had six packs.
Oh, Daryl.
Shout out Daryl Fields. He's on that episode of Jeff Talk. Good homie, freak athlete. That guy would smoke blunts all day and drink 40s and then go run a 4 flat without stretching, like a 4-4 flat, I should say. But
I mean,
but yeah,
Ryan,
so we're talking
Ryan
about
and Moses
genetics
in high school were those kinds of guys.
Even
high school is probably even more applicable because you don't have to work out in high school. Like real freaks will skip reps because they don't need them.
But we've all, like I said, in college it's different because in college we're all grinding hard, and if you're not grinding hard, you don't
have the grind, you don't make it.
And so, but that's what I'm saying is, I think the college workouts have more to say about genetics, and we're all grown men at that point too, right?
True, so your body's
we're capping out that potential, and like I'm telling you, there's just certain guys we would all do the same workouts. And certain guys, you know what I'm saying, would be shredded and certain guys wouldn't. Myself included. I mean, I was strong. I was athletic. But I'm just saying all this. This is about Chase Hooper, not me. Athletic potentials and athletic ceilings and genetic lotteries and all, like that's a factor. And we talk about it in basketball all the time. Like in basketball, this is a very common
It's more apparent than any other sport. It's more apparent than any other sport.
Sometimes, we're talking about DBs that run 4.2s and shit like that.
I think sprinting too, bro. I think sprinting is one of those where it's like you either have it or you don't.
Yeah. And but in MMA, it's such a technique-driven sport that we that conversation doesn't get had often. But sometimes I think it needs, especially in this new era where we're getting like elite
super
level
athletes are starting
like Francis
to come over.
Ngannou, Israel Adesanya. I mean, John Jones was the first.
And his genetics can't be argued with.
No,
Chandler Jones and Arthur Jones.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So in this new era, man, that's what I'm saying. Chase Hooper might be 10 years too late, even though he's the youngest guy in the UFC.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And I love his technique and ability at such a young age, but that caps at a point, right? Like technique and ability caps. Gordon Ryan's a perfect example.
Even 8 years ago when Damian Maia was just like submitting everybody, or Jacare Souza, like that era of UFC, Chase Hooper would have been A-OK, built how he is. But this new era,
this new crop, they're too athletic, too strong, too fast.
All right, man, cool. We agree on that. We'll keep it pushing here because next we got Matt the steamroller that gets steamrolled. Frivola minus 200 fighting Terrence McKinney.
Oh, hey, wait,
plus
time out.
170.
Your introduction was already longer than the fight.
It was. It was.
Crazy.
That is
Sorry
a
to just hit you like that. I'm
no,
sorry,
that was
but
good shit, bro. Plus 170 underdog for McKinney, only because he was making his debut. And you've got to feel for Frivola. So apparently, this was Frivola's like fourth different fight that he
I
prepared for.
know.
And then that happened. His last fight, the same thing happened. He had like, it was like his third. So I think in like 2 training camps, he's had to prepare for like 7 total fighters, which,
Poor
I
fucking
mean,
guy.
good on him for getting in there. And I mean, he signed he agreed to it. Like, I'm not saying he's a victim here, but I'm just saying, like, I think he trains with Aljamain Sterling in upstate New York, and Aljamain was talking about this on Twitter. He wasn't too thrilled with the whole situation because both fights ended very badly for Frivola, and it's like who knows how it looks if he actually
Gets a real camp
in a real game plan. And like I said, there's no excuses in the UFC, but it's interesting circumstances, and interesting circumstances happen all the time.
I will say it's Terrence McKinney's debut fight in the UFC, and his story is awesome. They didn't share it. I don't know why they didn't share it. Do you know his story?
No. What is this? The guy that almost killed himself?
I mean, by accident, by total accident.
Shit, right? Or
yeah. So he got like bad LSD and took like LSD and mushrooms together, and it was like research chemical. And he started like tripping out and sliced his neck open and died twice on the way to the hospital.
Wow.
And there's pictures of him like on the operating table, like they had like a thing around his head because I guess he was just like spitting up blood and shit. And like obviously when they're transporting you, they can't have that, but it's just like soaked in blood, like the cover and shit. And like you can see, like it's insane. It's insane.
Okay.
Like there's
a
picture
wasn't aware that was the guy.
There's a picture of when the cops come up on him and he's up against the fence, just like looks like he's dead, like against the fence, like laid up, no shirt, covered in blood. Yeah, it's insane. So for him to be where he's at now is like, whoa. And he said,
I gotta say, man, and man, them drugs ain't no joke. I personally never had a bad trip with shrooms. I definitely had bad acid trips.
acid you gotta be careful with.
You gotta be careful with, man. Like, I don't like acid. Like, I think I'm done with acid. Like, it's
too strong. It's too fake.
The thing is with me, bro, and I'll admit this about myself, I'm like a natural protector. And I'm usually, like, this is going to sound like a douchey thing to say, but it's just a fact of life with, like, average fat Americans. Like, if I'm in a group of people, like, I'm typically, like, if something goes down, like, I'm going to be the guy that, like, people look to. Like, I'm not trying to say I'm badass McGee or anything, but I'm just saying, like, just compared to your average soft American.
Yeah. I think we would look to you that way too, because it's like you have an athletic background and career, like you're a bigger guy, like
I've
you're
been in a few scraps, you know. But anyway, what I'm getting at is like when I'm on acid, I can't like I feel like I still can't let go of that, and it's like it's like this weird tension within me, and I can I don't know, man.
You can feel it.
Yeah, like acid, I don't get all hippy dippy. I get like kind of paranoid on acid, like kind of like I don't trust folks, like I don't know, like acid, it doesn't react to everybody the same way. And for everybody that thinks you're just gonna take some acid and turn into a 1960s San Francisco white dude and at a Grateful Dead concert, it ain't always like that. Especially if you got past trauma, if you got PTSD, if you've seen some shit in your life, man, it ain't always all. I'll leave it at that. But very interesting story. And so we'll get into the fight. There's really not much. Terrence McKinney, literally the first 2 punches of the fight dropped Frivola, and then he has to finish him with ground and pound, which kind of robs him of the record because that fight could have been stopped. I don't care what Frivola
I think
Frivola had the audacity to protest it. Like that should have been stopped after the first 2.
I had it at 4 or 5 seconds. Official is 7.
Exactly, because he needed like 3 hammer fists, technically, but
which ties him for the 4th fastest, which is still like, damn, bro. Like you want to fight quick,
and it wasn't flukish. Like anybody that wants to call that a fluke, like I'll say Masvidal's flying knee is a fluke, which is the record. But to me, this isn't a fluke. A 1-2, like a crispy. It wasn't like a haymaker or a crazy spinning attack or a jump off the fence or a front kick up the middle, like
just a crispy 1-2, like squared up, like down the pipe. 1-2. Yeah,
that's not fluke.
No.
As opposite of fluke, like that's just like that's called striking. Like that's called perfect striking, in my opinion,
dude. And then like as awesome as it is, he goes and celebrates and immediately blows out his knee.
Yeah, and he was trying to downplay it all night, and Rogan, Dr. Rogan, as they call him, was trying to overplay it all night. But man, I gotta say, bro, as a football player, I've seen a few non-contact ACL tears in my day.
That's
And I
for
said,
sure what that was. That's
I'm,
absolutely what, I mean,
I'm
yeah.
not trying to be Dr. Rogan. He tried to say, he was saying everything in the book. Oh, I need to stretch it. Oh, it was an MCL. I hurt my meniscus skateboarding early on when I was first learning to skate, and it felt like this weird tightness in the back of my knee.
You know, and I will say it resembled a meniscus tear in the sense that he couldn't flex his knee outward all the way, and he couldn't put any weight on it. ACLs you can kind of walk on sometimes.
And I'll say my meniscus. I have hook tears in my meniscus just from everything in my whole
Yeah,
life, and it'll catch sometimes. And when it catches, I look I look crippled, but then like 10 minutes later, I'm totally fine.
yeah.
Um,
Those little bucket handle tears.
and so if it was a situation like that where his knee was just kind of locked up, I could see him reacting that way, because there's been times where people thought I like hurt my knee bad, and I'm like, no, trust me, this has been happening since I was 15. I'll be straight in a couple minutes, but I don't know. I hope it's that. Fingers crossed, because I feel you. It looked pretty non-contact ACL tear-ish to me, which would be an absolute travesty. And we saw, what comes to mind is Johnny Walker, who was never the same and took all the steam out of his sails. He was a hot prospect. Probably hotter than McKinney is. And
Man,
his career was never the same.
funny you say that. I was at work last night when this happened, and the guy was like looking at me. He was like, "Did he just blow out his knee?" And I was like, "Yeah, you know, it's not unheard of that a guy celebrates a win and hurts himself." And he was like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, this Brazilian guy tried to do the worm and just like ruined his career, separating his shoulder essentially."
I
The guy
thought
was like, "What?"
I thought that's what was going to happen to Michael Chandler. I thought that did happen to Michael Chandler
And
after
honestly, Dana White and Gaethje does it too. He talks about he fucking hates it when they do backflips and shit like that because he's like, "Why?"
See,
He's
the
like,
thing
"Just."
about this that sucked though wasn't even a backflip. He literally just like hopped up on
He
there and
hopped up
hopped
and then
down.
jumped down. Yeah, and then boop.
Yeah, man, it sucks. It sucks, man. It really sucks. There was a lot of bad injuries last night. That would kind of be a theme of the card. But he gets the win. He cashes as a plus 170 underdog, kind of acting like, innocent until proven guilty, healthy until proven injured. You got to feel good about him moving forward. Now, if he has to take a year off, I mean, there's nothing to feel good about for anybody. And I mean,
He got a performance bonus last night though, right?
no, he got robbed of it. A lot of people think he got robbed of it. I got him written down. We'll get to it. Well, I want to
How do
hear
you get a
your.
top 5 fastest finish and
There,
not get
there,
a performance bonus?
there was a fight of the night. That's why.
I don't give a shit about that.
Okay, we'll get to it. It's a tough one. I love these bonus debates.
What
I
finishes were better?
I mean, we'll get. I don't want to spoil. I don't want to spoil.
I'll give you
But,
Paul Craig, but fuck the rest of it.
okay, we'll get to it. We'll get to it because that was the one. But all right,
That's unbelievable.
Terrence McKinney gets the win. Fourth fastest knockout in UFC history. It was the fastest lightweight knockout ever.
Oh shit.
What?
I just realized who else is going to get the performance bonus for a finish. Dude, if the Dana Duffel didn't slide back there to McKinney.
Oh, yeah, especially with his knee. Yeah, the Dana. Actually, I would rather give him the Dana health insurance than the Dana Duffel on that one.
I'm on the fuck Paul Craig train, actually. He didn't deserve it compared to that. The other one deserved it, though. I don't want to spoil that one.
Okay. Oh, it's spicy. I like the spice. I like a little caliente. But let's keep it pushing to this Panic-Gonzalez Alexis Davis fight, because that's the last fight on the early prelims, and then we'll end this live, start a new one for the prelims.
Yeah, I saw that on Kenneth's Instagram, actually. He said he was setting his drink down and missed the KO just from the pop pop, and he was like looked up like, what the fuck?
I saw that on Kenneth's story. Yeah, no, it was that fast. Yeah, if you were pissing, if you were taking a bong rip, if you were getting a drink, you easily missed that whole entire fight, 100%. Which is, I mean, that's why it's part of what makes the UFC so exciting, right? It could be 15 minutes, it could be 7 seconds. Who the fuck knows? Let's find out, right? When that bell rings, we're gonna find out. But yeah, next we got.
So the early prelims main event. We have here I'll run it. My bad. I've been making you do all the work.
You're good. You're good.
Women's bantamweight.
Also, for everybody watching, wondering why I'm looking like a fucking black preacher up here, it's hot as fuck. It's officially June in California. We're in a drought, and we got no AC because California. So
in NorCal, you don't really have central AC.
That's
right?
what, like, bro. I've earned some interesting perspective on heat, man. Southerners always talk about how dry heat's not as bad. Well, guess what, motherfuckers? Everywhere you go is air conditioned. Your house, your car, the stores, the doctor, your favorite bars, everywhere is air conditioned. So it's like, yeah, it's hot, but like unless you're straight up like mowing your grass, you're not really in it. Californians, it's less hot, and yeah, it's a dry heat, but we in this shit. Like we're so it,
Hey, I mowed the lawn last Saturday and it was fucking 91 degrees, all right? And it had rained 3 days prior.
Oh yeah, that Oklahoma humidity. The best way I describe it to Californians, because I'll get asked sometimes. It's like, you remember the episode of Scooby Doo when it's like foggy and he draws a circle and can push out the fog. That's how like Oklahoma humidity feels. Like you feel like you can like swim through the air. Like you feel like you can like airbend that shit out of the way. It's thick.
There was like a record day the other day. It was legit like 88 degrees, but 85% humidity. It was. I was moving some chairs at work, and I busted a sweat within 120 seconds.
When also we have no ozone layer either, so that's like a thing too. Like, we're like on Mars. We're close to the sun. Anyway, we got Panty Kianzad, minus 230 favorite, 11th ranked bantamweight, which I thought was a little disrespectful to have the 11th ranked bantamweight on the early prelims, but hey, it's the featured early prelim. What an honor. Fighting Alexis Davis, plus 195. Alexis Davis, veteran of all veterans in the game. Fighting at bantamweight. Davis actually fights out of San Jose, so shout out to her. And man, I thought Kianzad looked really great in this fight. Really good. And
I'm glad you say that. I'm so glad you say that.
I thought she looked good.
Too. Me too.
I thought she looked good. Okay.
So in the first round, she actually got outstruck. I don't know if you're following the numbers at all.
I don't think in this fight I was following the numbers.
So she actually got outstruck by I think a plus 10 margin.
Kianzad got outstruck by Davis?
Yeah, in the first round, yeah. And the strikes overall in this fight, I think Kianzad ended up winning by 12 or 15 strikes total, which is like, what?
So the first round is the theme of like a lot of this early prelim. I won't say it's the theme of the night, but the theme of the early prelims, without a doubt, was kind of like quantity versus quality. Am I right?
Yeah, that's why I brought it up at the very start. Was like, this was the fight that I thought
personified it. Yes, 100%, 100%. So I thought in round one, Kianzad's damage and just her impactful striking.
They're crisp. They're
so
clean.
Crisp, clean landed. I'll take that over Davis's volume in round one. Now, it's not to say that's like a one-size-fits-all or like that always is the case, but in that round one, I'll take her quality over Davis's quantity.
Yeah, and I thought Kianzad looked pretty comfortable in the trades as well. Like I don't think
think she was ever in trouble or really felt any of those. I 100% concur with that. 100%. So, but round two, completely different round. Davis's calf kicks were definitely compromising the legs. Another kind of theme of the night, but that's honestly the theme of the past 18 months, really. And then the cage control. She definitely had Panty on her bicycle. A lot of round two. She was controlling the center of the octagon. Not a ton of damage for Davis still, besides the leg, which is still damaged, but it's a little different than open up a cut or something like that. But so I had it all tied up 19-19 going into.
I did as well. I thought Alexis Davis's kicks actually were like the differentiating factor in the second round. I thought the damage that she was getting off with the leg kicks was enough, and the cage control definitely helped too. Like that did not hurt. Exactly. And it also limited Kianzad's striking too. So
boxers aren't as some boxers aren't as effective moving backwards 100%.
So I had it 19-19 going in the third.
And then round three, the earlier kind of theme that we brought up rears its ugly head again, kind of quality versus quantity. In my round three, I'll admit it was essentially a coin flip, razor thin, ultra competitive round.
I thought it was super close.
I valued Kianzad's combinations more than Davis's forward pressure and cage control. So round two, as far as cage control, round three, as far as cage control goes, looked pretty similar to round two, where Alexis Davis was kind of leading the dance. The difference, however, in round three, Kianzad wasn't throwing one. She wasn't throwing two. She was letting a full, like a boxer combo, a fucking 5, 6, 7 punch combos rip. And maybe not all 6, 7 punches land, but out of the 6 or 7, 2, 3, 4 would land and land clean and hard and impactful. And it's like, that's how you fight off your back foot. That's how you fight off your back foot. So I don't want to make it seem like I'm talking about both sides of my neck. Because I gave round two to Davis because she was moving forward. Davis was also moving forward in round three. However, like I said, Kianzad, when she was letting them go, she was throwing punches and bunches and landing impactful strikes, even though she was fighting off of her back foot. I thought it was enough. It was razor thin, super hard to score. I gave round three to Kianzad. It sounds like you did as well.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Well, I just thought that she continued the theme that we were talking about earlier of clean, crisp strikes that were she didn't land them all in the third round, because in the first round I think that her striking efficiency was way higher. However, in the third she was throwing those full combos, and essentially I just thought that I thought it was close, but I don't think it was razor close. I actually thought that she won it not comfortably, but I thought that it was it would be a robbery if you had given it to Alexis Davis.
I thought that the forward pressure of Davis made it really murky to score. Kind of like the devil and angel on your shoulder. Davis is moving forward the whole time. But
for me, I was just valuing the damage counts I was getting off from the first and second. So I think I was in tune with that. So in the third, that's why I scored it that way, I'm sure.
I was kind of playing devil's advocate with myself.
Oh, yeah.
I could easily see some jerk-off judge loving this forward pressure from a Davis is kind of what I'm saying here. But honestly, it proved not to be a problem. Honestly, probably too much of not a problem. It sounds kind of ironic to want to roll out a hill to disagree with yourself. But seriously, 2 judges scored this 30-27. How in the holy fuck does round 2 not go to Davis? Seriously, we both had Kianzad winning the fight. Neither one of us think the wrong lady won. But
a lot of Twitter was on Davis for round 2 as well. So it's not even like we were alone in that.
Yeah, I do not get the 30-27s. And the fact that 2 out of 3 judges scored a 30-27, I don't really get that at all. I said not going to roll out a hill to disagree with myself, but strange. I really, like I said, I'm really good at kind of trying to play devil's advocate, see where they're coming from, even if it's a position I disagree with. I can't find a scenario where I give round 2 to Kianzad, but I guess it doesn't really matter. Kianzad wins as the -230 favorite. She was 11 fighting an unranked fighter, but it was a decent name of an unranked fighter. And she called out Raquel Pennington. Man, I don't know. I somewhat don't like when young rising fighters beat an old veteran and then call out another old veteran. It kind of I'm not the biggest fan of kind of that strategy. Now, is it a good strategy for building your name and building your brand and gaining credibility? It is. But I don't, is it essentially trying to get the fight that will do the most for your career while putting yourself in the least amount of jeopardy? Yes. And is that a smart way to manage your career? Also, yes. But is that what the fans love? Is that what real competitors do? Is that what Nate Diaz does by example? No. And so it's not my favorite kind of strategy for a career, but I don't think it's a bad strategy for a career.
It's a safe strategy.
Yeah, for sure. Which who the fuck likes that? But I get it. But Kianzad, man, I don't think we necessarily learned anything. I think we all knew that she had good boxing and good hands and good striking. I think we also knew that she would struggle with high-level grapplers. Whenever she was on her back, she was super ineffective. Said kind of a fight you don't learn a lot from, but I guess she gets some Q rating for beating Alexis Davis. I guess I'm not the biggest fan of those kind of fights. But hey, it is what it is. She looked really good, and I'm a big fan of watching her throw punches.
Yeah, me too. I think that's a good note to wrap it up on, and we'll get back with the prelims here in a minute.
Yeah. Take a quick break, go take a piss, pour a drink, and we'll be back with the prelims, everybody. Thanks for doing a little different this week.